Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Bash here, bringing you this presentation of the CFB Analyst on Bash CFB Network. Welcome in, guys. This is going to be a pretty decent podcast. I haven't done one in a couple of days. Haven't done one too much this week. Just checking out, what's going on around the college football universe, and specifically media days. I had one a couple of days ago. I haven't had one since, and I haven't had one before. There wasn't too much in terms of media days. Okay. Ohio State predictions. So I'm just going through here. Ohio State predictions for the 2018 season. Oregon State win 52-3. Rutgers win 49-7. TCU 41-24 win. 63-6 against Tulane. I think that's way too high. Penn State is what he picks as the loss for Ohio State. 34-27. This is on a chat, a group, by the way. Indiana 45-21. Okay. Minnesota 38-3. Purdue 49-28. A little too high scoring in my opinion. Nebraska 48-9. Michigan State 31-28. 55-7 Maryland, and 28-21 win against Michigan. Comments here. A lot of people saying that I can see that. I would love that Penn State result is what someone said. I think they could potentially get 3 losses. 3 losses? This guy says that he could see them potentially losing Michigan State, Michigan, and Penn State. When I look at this Ohio State schedule, I see a few things. Let me give you this. I see a TCU game that is most likely going to be a 50-50 crowd in Arlington, if not favored by Ohio State. People are saying it's a virtual home game for TCU. Ohio State fans travel. Once you make that neutral site, it opens up the ticket options to buy tickets for that game. They make this one neutral site in Arlington. It's less travel for TCU. But Ohio State fans, as they've shown in the past, going to Arlington, they outnumbered USC, they outnumbered Oregon, they're going to outnumber TCU, because they're going to have more availability to buy tickets, and there will also be a lot of neutral playing kind of games there. I have a buddy of mine, not even an Ohio State or TCU fan, and an Auburn fan. He's going to that game. But here's my problem with what people are saying about this is you point out the obvious. Penn State's not going to be as good. They, with great receivers and great running backs, have not had too much success on offense. Penn State had a few lucky breaks, honestly, to get touchdowns last year, and they quite honestly got lucky breaks the year before to get touchdowns. They only scored 3 touchdowns. One was off of a block kick. They were outgained by 150 yards against Ohio State, and they allowed Penn State, this is with a more experienced secondary, allowed JT Barrett to go 16 for 16. And I'm sorry, but if JT Barrett isn't as good as people, if he's as bad as people are saying and making him out to be, then Penn State, with a experienced secondary, couldn't slow him down. They're not going to be able to slow him down now, and that is just they're not JT, but they're not going to be able to shut down Ohio State now, and that's just fact. Even if it's in Beaver Stadium, they need things to go their way like it did a couple years ago. I just don't see it happening. This Penn State team is not as good as they have been in years past. I don't see Ohio State losing in Beaver Stadium. I easily can see Ohio State starting off the season. I could easily see Ohio State going undefeated through the regular season. Don't think that'll happen. I think there are 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5 games on the schedule, and it's the last 5. Sorry, I think there are 5 games, the stretch. There's the last 5 games that it's going to be tough for Ohio State. Purdue, Nebraska, Michigan State, Maryland, Michigan. I'm starting to flip on Maryland. I did say Maryland would beat Ohio State. I'm flipping on that, but I do think that game will be close. I think Michigan will be close. Michigan State will be close. And Nebraska and Purdue, Nebraska will be probably the least close, but I still think we win. I said we, Ohio State fan. I still think Ohio State wins by 3 or 4 touchdowns there at home, but it won't be as easy as everyone's saying it will be. Nebraska's not necessarily a bad team, just a young team playing a tough schedule. They will be beat up by the time they hit Ohio State. They won't be able to match up physically. And Purdue, it's a trap game in West Lafayette. I can see that one possibly being a 1 or 2 touchdown game right there. Minnesota and Indiana, those games are going to be rebound games after, a couple of physical matches with Penn State, TCU, and don't forget Tulane. I'm not saying Tulane's going to compete with Ohio State. 63-6 is a little high. I like the direction that Tulane is going. I think they will cause Ohio State a little bit of headaches, not too many, 42-10, 49-7 kind of game. I really don't see that one getting too terribly out of hand for the Green Wave. So those last 5 games, the 2 I look most likely. Michigan, Ohio State is always at least 40-60 in terms of who can win that game. And this is why I say that. The year Ohio State won the national championship 2014, they struggled heavily against Michigan for 3.5 quarters, pulled away with Zeke Elliott grinding away in the 4th quarter. The game up in Ann Arbor the year prior, 2013, Michigan wasn't even going to a bowl game. Oh, wait, no, that was the following year they weren't going to a bowl game. Michigan was a 7-4, or 6-5, I don't remember, near 500 team. Took Ohio State to a 2-point conversion that was picked off 1 by 1 point. And now we flip it to the other side. The last time Michigan has won, which is another reason why Michigan's always going to be more likely. The more Ohio State beats Michigan, the more likely the next season Michigan's going to be able to top Ohio State in my eyes. And every single year I get more and more nervous about that game because of the fact that Ohio State has beat Michigan so many times. When is it going to stop? And I really, as a Buckeye fan, I really don't want it to stop, but it's bound to stop. So back to what I was saying with Michigan. Michigan, of course, 28-21 is what he's saying. What was I saying? Okay, 2011 was what I was talking about. Braxton Miller's freshman year, Ohio State's 6-5 walking into that game. They're bowl eligible, but they're not playing for anything else. Michigan is playing for a BCS berth, and Ohio State took them to the wire. They lost by, I believe, 5 points to a much more talented Michigan team that should have ran over Ohio State. Much more physically gifted to Michigan team in Ann Arbor 2 years prior to that 42-41 victory for Ohio State. So you never know with that game. That game's always going to be a toss-up. FPI should never have it more than 60% either way with the rivalry. And Michigan's got a lot of questions to solve, but Michigan's either going to be the same thing we've seen where they're going to be great on defense, but they can't do anything offensively, or they're going to be better and they're going to be able to have more success, which is a scary part. Ohio State should have lost that game, and quite honestly, looking back, just to end this little nervous breakdown I have of, can we keep doing it? Can we keep beating Michigan as a Buckeye fan? Can we keep beating that team up north? If we would have lost that game, we got killed in the playoff. If we would have lost that game, let Michigan go on to the Big Ten Championship, let Wisconsin or Michigan or whoever the case may be go into the college football playoff, fine by me. You know what? Because I'd rather win a New Year's Six Bowl against a USC team in the Rose Bowl, or if it's not even the Rose Bowl, go to the Cotton Bowl or the Orange Bowl. It would have been a great game anyway. I mean, Ohio State was similar to Florida State or would have competed with USC. Would have been great anyway to see. I would have rather see that instead of having this nervous kind of thoughts in my mind about the 2018 season about are we going to continue the streak against Michigan. This has now been 6 years. This is going to be game, 7, I think? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, this will be game 7. So 6 games in a row Ohio State has won, and Ohio State has dominated through the past 14, 15 years, through the past, since 2001, really, Ohio State's dominated. So, yeah, I'm nervous about it, for sure. And we're talking a lot of Ohio State here today. I will do that occasionally on these podcasts. I'm a big Buckeye fan, live in Columbus. Going to be all over this team. But, yeah. The 2 games I really see most likely, Ohio State's schedule, even though it looks pretty balanced in terms of the teams they play, it seems to me like back-loaded scheduling. Like, not on purpose. Ohio State's back-loaded schedule is all below number 1 and number 2. Maryland and Purdue a couple years ago were cupcakes, so it did probably seem pretty balanced. A couple years ago, it's not anymore. But if you look at it, you got Oregon State and Rutgers, 2 warm-up games before TCU. You give Ohio State 2 warm-up games before a big-time matchup, see what happens. Oklahoma happened. Ohio State only had Indiana, and Indiana was a pretty solid team when Ohio State played them, and a little more physical, a little quicker than most teams that they would, Ohio State had Bowling Green, I believe, and Tulsa. 2 teams that do not match up physically, do not match up in terms of speed with Ohio State. Indiana was a lot closer to Ohio State than Tulsa and Bowling Green, specifically Bowling Green because, Tulsa ended up having a pretty good season, 8-4 last year, losing Houston on the goal line, or 8-4 2 years ago, losing Houston on the goal line. But here's the thing. If you got to talk Ohio State football, you have to be subjective, people. You cannot come in with a biased opinion when it comes to Ohio State. You either love them or hate them. That's what I'm seeing a lot of. No one's really neutral about Ohio State. Not too many people, at least. I've seen a couple. This guy hit it right on the nose as well. I think he's not too neutral. I just think he's buying into Penn State a little too much, a little bit too much into Trace McSorley, taking a little less into teams like Maryland, teams like Tulane, but Tulane doesn't really have a chance to beat Ohio State. Purdue, crazy things have happened, but what Ohio State has returning, I don't see it being any worse than last year was. 2 losses. That's at the end of the day. I think at most, and I saw this, I got a little bit outraged because he pointed out 4 games. I'm like, what? You think Ohio State's going to lose 4 games? But I misread it. He said that there's 4 games that Ohio State could lose. I could see him losing at most 2. I was like, what? But I thought, I was thinking at least. But anyway, I agree with that. Except I would select 6 games. I would select TCU, Penn State, Purdue, Michigan State, Maryland, and Michigan. Maryland's going to be a bowl team this year. Mark my words. I think Maryland is going to be a bowl team. And it will come back to bite me if, they're not a bowl team. But I think they are, and I think they will compete with Ohio State. I think they will be within 3 touchdowns for sure against Ohio State at home, a talented team, unless they deal with the injury bug that they had last year. I really like their quarterbacks, though, Taysom Hill and Tyrell Pigrome. That's not even to mention the guy who played most of last year, Max Bortenschlager. Bortenschlager, to me, was just kind of like a game manager. Tyrell Pigrome and Taysom Hill are playmakers, and that's what I think Maryland needs is a playmaker at the quarterback position to be a bowl-eligible team instead of a 4-8, 3-9, 5-7 type team. Excuse me. More comments about this, and then I'm going to move on. Hopefully you'll be wrong about that last Saturday. This is fair. I'd say Penn State is their toughest game by far. I disagree strongly. In fact, I think I can name you 3 tougher games. Michigan is always going to be highlighted when Urban Meyer is there, and when Jim Harbaugh is there on the other side. That's a great thing. In the 90s, in the Cooper era, he didn't do that. He didn't highlight that Michigan game on the last Saturday of the fall, or at least the last Saturday of the regular season. He didn't highlight that. That's why Ohio State lost. Now Ohio State's dominating. It's because Michigan's been through different coaches. Ohio State's been through 2, while Michigan's been through, I believe, 5. Carr, Hope, Rodriguez, Harbaugh. It might have been one more, I guess 4, but even then, that's double the coaches in the same amount of time. Ohio State has the consistency and knows what's on the table each Saturday. Each year against Michigan. That's why Ohio State, they want those gold pants. Michigan doesn't have the gold pants or anything like that. So Michigan's tougher. And then going to Michigan State, I'm sure Michigan State is mad about how these last 2 years against Ohio State has gone. No one's really talking about this, but here's why I'm changing my mind a little bit on this Michigan State game and saying this is actually probably the most likely that Ohio State will lose. Close first place and a close second would be Michigan. But this is why this is the first game that Ohio State would lose, is because Michigan State 2 years ago lost in a similar fashion to Michigan losing to Ohio State in 2013, giving Ohio State a berth in the Big Ten Championship and eventually the Orange Bowl after losing to said Michigan State. But I'm sure they are tired of losing in the ways they lost. They lost on a failed 2-point conversion. I think it was picked. No. They had an interception on what could have been the game-winning drive because Michigan State did have one more shot. But, yeah, that was picked. But they missed the 2-point conversion, 17-16. I remember I was very outraged. This was the same team who allowed, 40, 50 points to Northwestern, which Northwestern, I did not know how good that offense was until I looked more into them. And then last year, getting drubbed after Ohio State received crap all week and was ranked below the Spartans, 48-3 in the horseshoe. I am sure Michigan State is tired of that. I'm sure D'Antonio is going to use that. I think this game is going to be a close one. Because Ohio State's not – I really hope Ohio State doesn't sleep on Sparty. I think Sparty will be decently highly ranked. I think they will be the second-best team in the East when they play. Because Michigan's got a pretty tough schedule we can talk about after I'm done talking about Ohio State. I love my Buckeyes, but I think Michigan State will be the second-best team in the East. Ohio State, of course, could be undefeated. Ohio State probably won't take this game for granted, but they could. They did a few years ago. The last time Michigan State won against Ohio State was 2015, which Michigan State had that walk-off field goal. That's why Ohio State was able to beat Sparty down last year like they did, because they're going to be like, ain't no one going to ruin our chances no, Iowa is not even going to ruin it. Even though they drubbed us a week ago, we're going to take it out on you, Michigan State. That could be a similar thing. No one's going to stop our perfect season like a couple years ago. It'll be interesting to see how Ohio State responds. If I'm correct that they will be 9-0 entering that game, and it'll be interesting to see how Michigan State plays knowing that they have lost to Ohio State 2 years in a row. Which we will talk about Michigan in a minute. Let me finish through this comebacks. Someone said MSU, OSU 30-23. Okay. I mean, I did talk about that, but even then, like, we'll see, man. We'll see. But I do have an issue. This man is telling me that Michigan State is more talented than Michigan. Here's why I got a problem with that statement is because Michigan has the recruiting rankings to go by it. They got the defense to go by it, and they do have speedy guys to go by it. They got more speed. They got more skill on that team. However, I will make this simple point. Michigan State is more disciplined and has a better system for that group. So Michigan State is just right for Michigan State. Michigan has more talent, though. So when you can't compare. I mean, you can compare these two teams talent-wise. Just look at recruiting rankings and look at how what you see on Saturdays. When you see Michigan be the Michigan that they can be, physical, bruising, and fast as well, you see guys that are studs on the football field. You don't really see that with Michigan State, or too much of that with Michigan State. You just get the physical and running that type of offense. Brian Lewerke is a steal. All these guys have a chip on their shoulder. I think that's the difference. They're not as talented as these guys, but they are kind of Alex Smith, Kellen Moore-like players all across that roster. They got a chip on their shoulder, and they're ready to prove everyone wrong that overloaded in high school. That was kind of Le'Veon Bell's thing. All right, I'm moving on. So we're going to talk real quick about Michigan's schedule and why I said they will be second by the time Ohio State plays Michigan State. So here's Michigan. Their schedule is at Notre Dame, Western Michigan, SMU, Nebraska. 4-0 right there. I do not see them getting out of Ryan Field with a win. I like Northwestern to upset Michigan at 4-0. I think they do beat Notre Dame, and with ease. I don't think Notre Dame's all that good. And I think Michigan's going to catch a lot of people by surprise. A lot of people are sleeping on the Wolverines right now. 4-1. I think they lose that game. They play Maryland, Wisconsin, and Sparty on the road. I can see them winning all of those games. I can also see them losing against Sparty and Wisconsin, but I think this is where you really get into, how good this Michigan team is. If Michigan's really good, they'll go into that bye week with just one loss. Michigan will be really good if they get into that bye week after playing Notre Dame, Northwestern, Wisconsin, and Michigan State. 3 of them on the road, I believe. Yeah, 3 of them on the road. They get through that with 1 loss. Michigan's good. They are a solid top 10 team. Then you got Penn State, Rutgers, Indiana, Ohio State. You got a gap in between Penn State and Ohio State that you really have time to figure things out after a either win, not to mention a bye week in between Michigan State and Penn State. It's interesting how things work out, man. I can see him going 10-2, 9-3 type. But if Michigan's, I guess they won't be second, though, if they win against Michigan State. So I will backtrack that statement. Let's go ahead and move on. Possible conference realignment here. It is a 16-team conference or power conference that essentially would give 4 auto bids. So here we go. We got the Pacific West Conference. So this includes kind of tucked in the mountains and things like that. And then you got the Midwestern Conference, The Southeastern Conference, so the SEC stays there, just SEC, right? And then the Northeastern Conference, regional kind of thing. Here's what you do. I mean, it looks like you take out Kansas, but this is what it's essentially saying. I don't know if I like this, actually, in the Midwestern. So the Midwestern's got Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, TCU, Baylor, Houston, Texas A&M, and TCU. That's TCU. Houston, Texas A&M, Texas, Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas. Are you missing a team? Shouldn't this be? I think this should be 8, 7-2 kind of thing, but I guess not. Then on the other side would be Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas State, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota. I would add in Iowa State and Kansas, keep them in there, and go ahead and move Oklahoma to that South region that I'm going to call the South, and have Kansas and Iowa State play. Iowa State's not a bad team. Why would you take out Iowa State? So I don't like that too much. The Southeastern Conference: LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, eliminating Vanderbilt. North Carolina, Clemson. Ooh, why would you? North Carolina State out. Clemson, South Carolina, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Florida, Miami. I believe I said Florida State on the West. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. Again, same concept here. Add in North Carolina State, add in Vanderbilt. There's no reason to take them out. I don't like that too much. You can make this a little better with 8 teams and give more teams opportunity, or 8-team divisions. The Northeastern Conference: Boston College, Pitt. Why is Pitt up there? And why is Penn? I don't know. Boston College, Pitt, Penn State, Maryland, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, and Ohio State. On the east side, Michigan, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Louisville, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. So you're going to tell me that you're going to put – I just don't like this that much. You're going to tell me – I'm nitpicking, but you're going to tell me that you're going to leave out Kentucky from everything, Virginia from everything, all right? You're telling me Syracuse, Rutgers. Look, number one, you can't just think about football. You got to think about basketball as well, because basketball is going to have this same old stuff. And number two, you got to be able to accommodate more teams. If you're a Power 5 team right now, ain't no way you should be sliding out. All right? So that's my second thing. So Syracuse, Rutgers, Virginia, Kentucky, Iowa State, Kansas. I didn't even go through the Pacific West. Oregon State's left out, but Oregon's in there. So there's a lot of inconsistencies that bother the crap out of me. Cal, Stanford, Boise State, Oregon, Washington State. And on the other side, you got UCLA, USC, San Diego State, BYU, Colorado, and Pitchfork, Arizona State, and Arizona. So there's a little bit less missing with this. I don't think this huge conference realignment will work too well, though. Kansas, like it or not, Kansas is needed in the Big 12, and this is why. Basketball. What is Big 12 basketball without Kansas in the last decade? What is ACC basketball without Duke? Well, what is the ACC even if you're not – like, that's my problem. So here's at the end of the day. You cannot just accommodate for football. These commissioners are the only ones who control this. And at the end of the day, it's just not realistic doing this. It's a fun idea, conference realignment, and completely renaming the conferences and stuff like that. But No. It's got to accommodate for everything, all right? Basketball, football, baseball, lacrosse, hockey, soccer. It's got to accommodate for everything. It cannot just accommodate for football. So if Vanderbilt's bad at football, you did two things by eliminating them. Number one, their basketball program's not too bad, and their other programs aren't that bad. Number two, you solidly weaken the academics in the SEC. Their academics are not the greatest in the world with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt carries the cake in the SEC when it comes to academics. Academics aren't the worst at any college. Don't get me wrong. If you go to any college, congratulations. If you do that with Rutgers, Rutgers was put into the Big Ten because of what they can do academically. They weren't put in to be a football school. They weren't put in to be a basketball school. We've seen that. They've struggled in both. You cannot take out teams simply because they are good or bad at football. It does not work. So I know this is a hypothetical thing that I'm getting worked up about. Conference realignment. I mean, it's a good premise. I get it. Make it more, I think you can make it more of a, more of a, I'm struggling that really. Sorry, I think you can make it more geographical to go ahead and do that, but I still am not too big on that idea. So, vote for your top 5 Heisman candidates this season. Right now, Bryce Love, J.K. Dobbins, number 1 and 2. Really? I'm a big Buckeye fan. I think J.K. Dobbins is good. I don't think he's the number 2 right now in the Heisman candidacy. I think someone put Trevor Lawrence, Dexter Lawrence, Mackenzie Milton, Tua Tagovailoa. Again, Tua, we don't even know if he's going to be the full-time starter. I take a Will Grier over him, and I'm not huge on Will Grier. Rodney Anderson, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Bryce Love, and Mackenzie Milton, probably Khalil Tate too, in no specific order, should be top 5, top 6. Any of those 6 players should be top 5, in my opinion. I'm really kind of iffy about 3 players, which is Akers, Milton, and Khalil Tate. So I'm not big on that list. Tua Tagovailoa has not. He played half a game, guys. And as good as I think this kid will be, as good as I think Tua Tagovailoa will be, we don't even know if he's going to be the full-time starter. And notice I did say full-time starter. There is a possibility that Nick Saban would use both quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts specifically to run the football. You don't know. We don't know. None of us know. How Alabama taught the rest of the SEC scheduling system. And I am not really surprised. Basically, I call a bunch of crap with this whole I think we should go to non-conference. They're trying. I'm not buying it. This is why. So when you go ahead and you're told that you're going to receive a lot of criticism, that's essentially how these conversations start, and I've heard them. A lot of criticism about your scheduling. They're, of course, going to say anything to defend themselves. These head coaches have all the control on the scheduling, or almost all the control on the scheduling. And they're going to tell you that, when Nick Saban says, I wish we would schedule all Power 5 opponents, he's lying. If he wanted to schedule all Power 5 opponents, you sure as hell do not dial up Mercer in November. You don't dial up Mercer at all. The Big Ten specifically has right. Now, They use the Big 12 as an example, as an argument against 8 or 9 teams or 9 conference games, and they essentially say it only works for them because they play a round robin schedule. I'm in Big Ten country, and I like to take pride in keeping track of the Pac-12. I know how good people are doing out there, even though it's on late Eastern. I usually try to stay up to watch those games, and I usually do. They have it right, especially the Pac-12, man. They got 12 teams, and they're playing 9 conference games. They are playing most of their conference. You get an idea of who is the best team in their conference. Now, they're going to beat themselves up while the SEC walks into the playoff, while the ACC walks into the playoff, and quite honestly, the Big Ten walks into the playoff. 9 conference games for 10 teams, a round robin. They beat themselves up. The only reason the Big Ten didn't make it was because this was the first year where you had parity in the Big Ten. We haven't had anyone step up and upset anyone in conference, such as Penn State only lost to Michigan in conference. Wisconsin lost to Michigan and Ohio State in conference. Ohio State lost to Penn State in conference, and Michigan lost to Ohio State in the Iowa. Throws a wrench in things 2 years in a row. But this year there was real parity because Michigan State, I mean, it was more mixed per se. Michigan State beat Penn State. Ohio State lost to Iowa. And not to mention they also lost to Oklahoma. If they didn't lose against Oklahoma, if they would have scheduled Mercer like Ohio State did or like Alabama did, Ohio State's in over Alabama. If you got a debate between a 2-loss Ohio State team who has a bad loss against Iowa versus a 1-loss non-champ with a terrible resume in Alabama, you take Ohio State if they don't have Oklahoma on their schedule and they don't lose to Oklahoma, and they're like, well, that was their only loss of the season. So, they got similar resumes, but Ohio State would still get the nod with or without Oklahoma, as we saw, because they beat Wisconsin, Penn State. I'm not going to get off on the tangent. So, yeah, Alabama did set the standard, and I got a huge problem with people going through and kind of having, okay, so essentially, when you tell me that Alabama has played the most ranked opponents since 2015, that includes an overrated SEC. Overrated. Now, were they ranked at a time? You got to specify, were they ranked at that time? Were they ranked in the season? Mississippi State shouldn't have been ranked at the end of the season. LSU shouldn't have been ranked number 17 at the end of the season. Why was Fresno State in the rankings right before the end of right before the conference championships? And they would have finished if they would have finished the job in the Mountain West, but they, of course, weren't a top 25 team. Are you going to include Florida State, a 500 football team? Are you going to include games against teams that were ranked at the time, like Texas A&M a couple years ago, that fell dramatically out of the rankings? Are you going to include all of that? I don't think you should. It's hard for you to go off of the SEC since 2015 has been overrated. Overrated. And we all know that. In fact, 2015, let's go ahead. Let's look. I'm going to go ahead and look at this. Number 20 was on 2015. Okay. Number 15, Ole Miss. Pretty sure they fell out of the rankings that year. Oh, no, they did finish well. Okay, never mind. I'm going to take that back. Wish they did too, by the way. I'll just make a point. They did lose at home 43-37, but so that does lose 25. There's one team who didn't finish in the top 25. 2015. They didn't finish in the top 25. Oh, they didn't finish in the top 25. Number 4, LSU. I'll give you LSU. They were 16th country. The end Mississippi State finished unranked. Number 18, Florida. Okay, 25th in the people. I'll give you that. Number 3, Michigan State. Number 1, Clemson. I'm just making note of this for this gentleman here who makes a statement. Now let's go to 2016. Number 20, USC. I know they finished top 25. 19, Ole Miss. They didn't. There's another one. Number 16, Arkansas. Number 16, really? They definitely in the top 5. Number 9, they finished 22nd. Okay, I'll give you that. They did not finish. It's already 3 teams, and we're not even halfway through the schedule. LSU, number 15 in the nation, they finished 13th, so they were actually a little better, surprisingly. I will be fair here, too. I will see if Mississippi State... Nope. Didn't. Auburn, pretty sure they did. Got 24th. And Florida, I'm pretty sure they did. Got 14. So 2016. Now all of a sudden, Alabama's up by 1. It would take a lot of time to go and look at all these teams, but just where all these teams finished. Well, I already know that's already one. Cool. Big drop off. Should have been Mississippi State out though. They weren't. I'll give you that. So they only had one. No one was ranked at the end of the season in the AP poll. Yeah, none of these teams are ranked in the AP poll at the end of the season, including Mercer. All right, I'm done with that point. Point is overrated SEC. Moving on. Next topic at hand. The Bryant and Lawrence are even, is what Coach Sweeney says. As of 2 hours ago. A&M are really beefing up the 2019 recruiting class as Isaiah Spiller commits to Texas A&M. Yeah, Jimbo Fisher can recruit heavily out there. All right, who's next? What's next? All right, so I released a bunch of polls on the best, or the sleeper teams in college football. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to find those. Wait, what is this? Huh. Number of days since your team won the ship. That's funny. And you spend a lot of days for Ohio State, though, but I don't even know. All right. Sleepers in the Big 12 so far. Ooh, a lot of responses. 34 for Texas, 14 for Kansas State, 10 for Iowa State, and Kansas getting some love here. 2 votes, probably trolls, but I'm not going to worry about it. Oklahoma State 2, Texas Tech 2, Baylor 1. Next one up. Let me see if I can find it. Big 10. Oh, hold on. Pac-12. Utah is in the lead. Okay, a lot less responses. Utah is in the lead with 7. Cal is second, tied second with Oregon at 2. And UCLA and Washington State have a vote apiece. So a lot less people caring about the Pac. Ooh, Big 10. Nebraska with 14. Iowa with 8. Northwestern with 7. Indiana with 1. No one else received a vote for sleeper teams. Now, keep in mind the top teams are not considered. I did not consider Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State sleepers. I did not even consider Florida State a sleeper in the ACC. SEC, Mississippi State, I barely consider them a sleeper, but I did. Mississippi State, Texas A&M, South Carolina in that order. So it's 12 for Mississippi State, 7 for Texas A&M, 3 with South Carolina, 2 for LSU, 1 for Vanderbilt, and 1 for Florida, 1 for Arkansas. Interesting there. Arkansas does have a very favorable schedule. I do have them winning 6 games. No more than that, though. They do have a very favorable schedule, though, to easily go to a bowl game with a very bad non-conference schedule that Bama can have. Ruined. It's been 289 days since national championship. Dang. Tackle and fuel. Funny. Thought I had another poll, the ACC somewhere. Ooh, here's a good one. Should the Pac-12 add Boise State by expansion or removing a current member? I said no. 28 people out of 35 disagree with me. I would say no to Boise State going to the Pac-12, replacing someone, or adding. I don't think we need expansion. And Boise State, like it or not, hasn't really dominated the Mountain West lately. They've won, haven't really dominated since Peterson's departure. So it'll be interesting to see coming games. They do have a favorable schedule this year. And that might be all I got for you. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign off here. It's been a good podcast. A lot of interaction with different people. It's running a little closer to an hour. So thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time.